Welcome everyone to Expanding Your Consciousness through sharing stories and discussion. And tonight it's just an open discussion on consciousness. And Ken is going to read one of his essays. And this one is the One Room Schoolhouse.
In 1902, Ms. Smith had 17 students ranging from ages 6 to 12. She taught in her one-room schoolhouse, grades 1 through 8. She was a master of her craft. Her craft was reading, writing, and arithmetic. When she taught arithmetic to a 6-year-old, it was different from teaching a 12-year-old. The ones who were just learning how to count were in the same room as the ones practicing long division and learning about fractions. One of her pupils was Albert Einstein's second cousin. Another grew up to be the village idiot. Miss Smith taught them all, and everyone benefited from her teachings. She was the master of her craft. In a setting like this, it was important for Miss Smith to keep order. For this purpose, she kept a narrow stick that she used to whip the children who misbehaved. Her authorization for this necessary evil came directly from the Holy Book, which said, "Spare the rod and spoil the child." Down the road a ways was a little one-room country church. The one who taught there did not have the advantage of beating his parishioners with a stick. Instead, he kept order by threatening them with the fires of hell. He too taught those of various levels of ability. The ones who were just learning to obey the basic laws of Moses were in the same room as those learning universal love or contemplative prayer. The great teachers of the past had these same problems. Jesus himself had to teach both beginners and sages, and his scribes dutifully recorded his teachings. But the scribes forgot one important thing. They forgot to tell us readers whether we were reading what Jesus taught the beginners or what he taught the sages, the grade 1s or the grade 4s or the grade 6s. Modern readers have to sort that out for themselves. And unfortunately, we are not the masters of our craft. We were so much better at learning when we were children, so much better than now. When we were 7 years old, we easily accepted the reality of our position in the class. Of course, a 10-year-old knows more than us. We're only 7. Of course, a grade 5 has a greater knowledge of arithmetic than a grade 2. But adults operating at the level of grade 2 in spirituality or religion have great difficulty with those operating at grade 5 level. For some reason, adults with a grade 2 understanding of spirituality shun the understandings of the grade 5s. How strange. It's like they know how to add and subtract, but enthusiastically reject algebra, geometry, and trig. How very strange. It's not like they're rejecting the concept of learning certain subjects. Certainly, we all have the right to not know certain topics. But there's a big difference between not knowing and enthusiastically rejecting. Why are those with lesser knowledge and education in spiritual things so intolerant of those who know more? Perhaps those ancient grade 2 teachings about the fires of hell have scared them too much. Perhaps that's why they're afraid to check the grade 3 curriculum. That's it.
That was great.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
As you can see, I'm not much on the authoritative approach to religion.
That was excellent.
I'm glad you liked it, Kelly. I was in one of those moods when I wrote it. There's basic, see, our pride gets in the way. Well, maybe not us. I mean, the six of us are okay, but their pride gets in the way.
It's the idea of I'm better, right? So whatever level we are, like I'm better than everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing because I studied Christianity quite. It was my favorite religion for a long time, and you encounter this. The people who really are just beginners really reject the sages and the saints. It's weird.
But the saint themselves can be beginners sometimes. So that's not true.
I missed that.
Sorry, this like the saint themselves can be beginners sometimes. Like all of those people who they think they know a lot, they have lots of authority, but they still don't know anything. Yeah, no. Well, you know how, okay, for example, in Islam, like those extremists, like Taliban, like they kill people in the name of God, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, how awful, like how worse can it get, right?
Yeah.
So you kill the creator makes us, and then you kill what the creator makes in order to please God. So I can get a sense of that. So that's what I'm saying. So sometimes they think that they know a lot, they have the lots of authority, they are up there, but they don't know anything really. Or those in the church are not better, right? So they think they are level hundreds, but they don't really know anything.
That's because the way they're taught when they're kids. It's like I grew up as a Christian, and I was taught that I was a piece of dog shit basically, and everybody and God had a plan, and we were sinners, and you know it was. I mean, when you're taught that you're just a low piece of crap when you're a child, you know, and I'm sure in all the other religions too, they have their perspectives on what God wants, and they think they know, and then the children get brainwashed into believing it. And that you tell a child straight to the face there's a Santa Claus, I mean, they'll buy anything you tell them. And so they believe that they're inferior. They believe that they're separate, and they don't have any concept of oneness whatsoever. And so that's what they get. So they're going to do the same thing to other people. That goes from generation to generation. That's just the way it is. They're lost, you know, and it's a lot about ego, their identities and stuff. So the only thing that gets them out of it is a vision of some kind that gets them out to see more clearly. So, you know, like, how do you deal with these people? And that's why we got the wars and all that kind of stuff. And until the training of children changes, I think we're going to be stuck with this kind of stuff.
What it is in this essay, the gist of it is that there's the child's view, the grade 2 view, and then there's a higher view, the grade 8 view or whatever. So the grade 2 view, well, for example, when you interpreted the fall, the story of Adam and Eve, Brent, you said, so the grade 2 view would be, it's about obedience to God, and they got hurled out of heaven or Eden because of disobedience. But if you look at it in a little more detail, as perhaps a grade 5 or 6 level, you realize it's something to do with unity and duality. Well, that's really advanced. And some of these people just can't handle it. Okay, so fine. Trying to handle killing in the name of God is really a difficult one, I find. That whole, anyway, so that's a basic level where you're controlled by your hate mind. But what the point of my essay is, it's pride. Somehow they get this stubborn authoritarian pride that they know best. And what happened to that humility of the child who, when she was just learning basic adding and subtracting, and she looked up to her friends who were advanced and knew dividing and multiplying. What happened to that humble attitude that I'm going to learn that someday? Gone. So, and the Taliban's a great example. And there's all kinds of, the concept of original sin has, I mean, I guess if at the child level, you're a piece of dog shit. But if you really understand what sin is, it's not about disobedience, it's about separation. then you go perhaps to grade 5 or 6. So there's a reluctance of people to learn. And that's what fascinates me. I can't believe that people are so thick-headed that they really feel strongly that they shouldn't learn anything else. It's a
They're full of themselves. That's what they are.
They're which?
They're full of themselves.
Yeah,
Those people.
Or full of fear.
I think
Also,
it's fair.
I mean, the whole, grew up in Roman Catholic faith, and you think about that dynamic when, you're told you're basically bad, and by the time you can understand what the priest is talking about, what good and bad is, in a very basic way. But then you're in this relationship with these authoritarian figures, your teachers, your priests, where you feel bad about yourself. So now you're trying to please them. So you're in this toxic relationship with them, where they could abuse that relationship, that power. And I mean, we know that's happened, but that's really hard to break out of. I just kind of realized as we've been talking, that's kind of, you're set up, right? You're set up to you're trying to please them, and because you've been brainwashed to think you're bad. But I guess hopefully you get old enough and you realize that why, why should I feel like this, and why should I accept everything in those terms, and then hopefully you get exposed to other things and you start to learn about a higher meaning of these things. But a lot of people, I think, would just get stuck in it, and you're kind of always, people can be just stuck in that dynamic where you've been made to feel low and you're trying to please. So that's could be hard to get out of.
It's a big mistake to teach that, isn't it? When you look back at what they intentionally teach that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are they thinking?
Well, so it's, I mean, to a young mind, it's devastating.
Yeah.
I think what it is, like they don't understand that greatness in their narrow mind, but they also still wanna keep their power or their position. So they wanna just show that, hey, I know better, even though they don't know better. Maybe at some point, even them think that they know better, right? So they tell it so much, then they're like, oh, I know better, where they have no idea what they're talking about, because they try to bring that greatness of the universe to their narrow mind, and then they just transfer it to the mind of child, but they don't know what they're doing. So I think that's what happened.
I think that you have to realize that the truth lies within, literally, and it's always coming from the outside, and we're not really told that the truth lies within when we grow up. And if you don't have a sense of intuition in you to overcome that, and that's the only reason I got out of it, was because my own intuition every once in a while would pop up and go, hey, this doesn't sound right. Does that make any sense, really? That would happen. But some people, their intuition gets destroyed because it's hammered down so hard. They don't trust their own intuition anymore, because they're told that kind of thing is Satan talking to them. If it disagrees with anything they've been told, that's Satan. So if they believe that, which a lot of people do, now their intuition is not their friend, it's their enemy. And so now they're stuck, maybe for the rest of their lives, in that particular belief system. So you've got to have that intuitive sense still alive in you. And even with it, it can take forever. I mean, it took me decades to get guilt-free from my own religion, because even though I trusted my intuition and it was different from what I was told, there was still the feeling inside me of guilt, to just questioning the religion. So it was literally decades before I woke up one day and realized I was free of it.
I had no problem questioning the religion. It's just because the people that they vouch for religion, they were so ridiculous in my country that it was just no brainer. So sometimes they just like, try to give you some options or just try to be nice, but it wasn't like that in my country. So it was just easy for me to defy them from very young age.
Plus, you had an issue probably with being told right off the bat that you were inferior just because you were female. Even worse than in the United States.
That's another thing. Okay, so when I grew up, I defied with everything because I had like this curious mind. So first of all, so I was never told. So I went to school, they gave me a scarf. It's like, hey, you have to wear this. But before that, like in my household, there was like not such a thing. In my household, like my mother was a doctor. She brings the money. She's powerful. So that's the image that I had seen from a woman. And then I go to society, I'm like, oh, this is not it, right? And so this is all conflicts in my mind. Like, what's going on? So from the very end, I would just question everything. So I would not trust their religion. I would not trust their beliefs, trust the marriage, nothing. So I had just to grow up and I had to experience and I had to find my own way. For me, it was easy. And I was kind of a weird child in that sense because like everyone was like going on one path and I was going on the other path. But yeah. No, but I didn't believe them even for 1 second.
Lucky. You're pretty lucky there.
Good for you.
Maybe because I was like, in a very extreme circumstances. And I was talking with a friend because she said that it took her like ages and ages to realize that. When I was like 7, I'm like, oh, what's going on in the world? So, yeah.
Yeah, having mama be a doctor and not wear a scarf around the house, you had a leg up on a few people there.
Yeah. No, I mean, like in Iran, a lot of families, we are not religious. Like Iranian people, like people are not religious. It's a society. Then you go to the society. And then, so what we are is that we really get used to have 2 lives, outside and inside, like kind of underground and then like out in the society, which is not good because then it can end up you being a hypocrite in a way because you have to have always these 2 faces, which also I don't like. But yeah, but most of the families are not religious actually.
I was going to say though, it's a class thing as well in Iran.
Yeah, class thing.
So the lower classes would probably
more religion. Yeah.
They'd be more strict than the higher classes. I do think though, with religion, to some degree, there are words of wisdom in all of them. Like, when you think of Jesus and the words of Jesus and the kingdom is within, and I do think it's learning which words to choose, those that resonate with a deeper sense of yourself, right?
Yeah, I actually don't think there's any problem with the religion. I think there's problem with the people who are representing the religion, not Jesus or whatever. But after that, because they don't understand it, but they want to show that, hey, we understand everything, so we are better, or we understand this. And then, so like Jesus is all about love, but then it comes down and then you see all these wars like Renaissance, that like they kill people, like, or with Islam, same thing. But the religion itself, it doesn't say that actually, but then their interpretations of religion, I think that's what the problem is.
Yeah, so I guess that's why you can have a loving God and a vengeful God, right? One who's an angry God, there's mixed messages in a lot of these religions too.
Yes, a loving God having a hell waiting for you where you're going to burn for eternity if you're bad. I mean, come on. How could you?
Yeah, so
but that's also interpretation, though.
Manipulation, done by man, right?
Because my understanding of hell is that hell is a place, it's like not a place, but just to say it, it's where we regret, we see our regrets, like the way that we lived versus the way that we could have lived. So it's like that they show these 2 movies in front of us and there is no time, so we can see everything. And that's the moment of regret that can, because there is no time, it can also last for eternity. So that's hell, and that does make sense for me. But hell in the sense that, hey, you do bad, everyone goes to hell, because we are all imperfect and we are all like sinners in a way. But sinners in not the word that, hey, sin also has a different definition, right? But hell to me is not like there's like no fire. The fire is the knowledge, it's the awareness, that you could have done something and you didn't do it. So that's hell. So we go through hell to burn the karmas, and then we go to heaven after that. So it's all cycles of lives that we are going to experience them.
Or hell is just separation, and oneness is heaven. You can look at it that way too.
The way actually we see hell is that hell makes, okay, so we have this spirit of God within us, but we don't have any access to it because we don't have the knowledge. So it's like, so think about it as a 7-year-old who lost his father or her father, and they have all they have all the fortune that comes from their inheritance, but they don't have the access to it yet because they're 7-year-old. So they need to get 18-year-old. And then, so for us, we have this inside us. We have this knowledge inside, the spirit of God inside us, but we don't have any connection with it. So we need to go through hell to burn that karma in order to become one with that. And that's heaven afterwards, which is that oneness. But we need to go to hell to burn the karma in order to find that spirit of God and to understand it. And now we are mature enough to have that. So for us, it's like a marriage of the two.
So this is your viewpoint on your religion, how it functions.
You can call it religion, you can call it my belief system, but yes, that's something that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I don't see karma at all in this. I personally don't see it at all.
Karma is basically, again, all the things, just hell, all the things that you could have done. Karma is like all the bad karma. It's like, whatever actions that you've done, you could do good, and we are all imperfect too, right? So we build up karmas as we move up through these lives, and then when we get to hell, we get to see it. It's like they show us that awareness. It burns us, so that burns the karma. And then once we're free, then we can find that oneness, which is like get one with the spirit of God or Ruhullah.
I understand what you're saying, but I can't tell whether it's your personal idea of what it is, or that's what you're told, and you think that might be true.
That's what I found through Irfan Halqa, the Halqa mysticism.
So it's what you found in it, and that's how you see things.
Yeah, that's how I found, but also through my connections, I also like get that understanding. So it's just like I said, there's a theoretic part, and there's also the practical part where you get into connection and you understand things like the oneness, like the truth, like those, like we can just like throw around these words, but then we need to understand it from within too.
Of course, yeah.
And I just ask Kelly if she has any comments. Kelly, do you have any comments?
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, Kelly.
Any comments? Anything you'd like to add?
I would say that we all make our own hell. So hell is different for everybody.
What's yours like?
I would say mine would be sent to a prison. I've never been to prison. Don't want to go. But that to me would be hell, because you are dealing with all different types of people and you don't know what they're like, and that
you have like a personal hell, a certain, I don't know, way of being. Some people get stuck in depression, that's their hell or whatever, right?
yeah I've experienced that. Yeah, I've experienced it. It's horrible. It's something that you really don't want to go through, but I mean, a lot of people do. I've experienced it. Yeah, back in 2010. Yeah, 2010 I experienced it, yeah.
I do want to go back to the karma thing. What if, I'm always big on what ifs, what if there's nothing wrong with any of us and we are perfect and we have nothing to work out once we wake up to the fact that we're perfect?
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. it doesn't make any sense that you have to pay a price for making a mistake in the past. There's only now anyway. There's only now. Why would you, what difference does the past make at all? If you're in the present moment, like you're in heaven sometimes right now, or you're in hell sometimes right now, but it's all just happening right now in the moment. I see no punishment. I see no hell. I see no karma. I don't see any of those things at all. I don't think they're real in any sense. I think they're just beliefs. I mean, how do we know anyway? Who's the oracle that tells us exactly what's going on right now and where we're going when we die? It's all stories. Everybody who talks about it's alive. So, what does any of it mean?
Because I'm thinking, like Shima, I know Master Tahiri talks about, I guess, like different frequencies or different, like we're an electrical field kind of thing, and we're programmed. So if we have certain beliefs, then that we can get stuck in those beliefs and manifest those things, right?
I agree.
I didn't understand the question, but I want to say something before that. So
Okay.
karma is actually not a bad thing. Like if you said, like, first of all, we know that we are not perfect and we know mistakes. We know that.
No, I don't know that at all.
I'm just talking about myself. I know that I
Okay.
make mistakes and I know that I'm not perfect, but that's not a bad thing, because who I am today is because of those mistakes that I made and I learned from them. So basically those mistakes made me a better person today. If it wasn't for those mistakes, I wouldn't be like the Shima today that I am, right? So if everything was just perfect for me, I wouldn't have to go. So when you struggle through something, you actually learn from that. That makes you more mature. So that's the whole point of the duality of this world, which is like a negative and a positive. So the negative, whatever you want to call it, it makes you, yes, you may fall, but from that fall, you also learn a lesson. So that's a lesson learned for the next experience, and you become more mature. So that's the whole point of it. And us having not to deal with our past, I say that we deal with our past at like every second. Anything that happens to us, whoever I am today, like if I mean, the best thing would be if I go and, like, I don't know, rob a bank right now, I will be in jail. And then why are you in jail? Because I robbed the bank. So that's just a very obvious example. Why are you in jail? Because I don't know, I killed somebody. Or so it's we are the consequence of our past, actually, of our past actions. And where we are today, it's all past. And yes, we want to find that we can only find the present inside us. The present moment basically doesn't exist. It's just, it exists inside us. Everything is past. So that's my view on karma. But I didn't understand the last question of the frequency thing. I didn't understand that.
Well, if we're in some sort of
Schoolroom?
Yeah, schoolroom, or some call it a simulation, some call it the holographic universe, some sort of program. We can change our frequency to get into certain states of being. You know, some of us might be in a lower state of being because of things that our thoughts or whatever, our actions. Others might be in a higher sense of understanding because of a more expanded way of thinking. Maybe through meditation, maybe through, talking aloud to yourself, whatever. There are different ways of changing that frequency.
Oh, okay. So I think, I don't know if that's what you mean or not. So one part of it is that the whole universe at the same time that exists, it doesn't exist. So part of it is that I experience through life. I make mistakes, I have to pay for it, whatever. One part of it, so it's like a coin, it has two sides. So that's one side of it. This other side that we also see is that nothing is real. Everything is virtual. Everything happens, but at the same time, it has finished already. So that kind of thinking frees us in terms of we don't really get too obsessed with this other side of the coin that, oh my God, I've done this and I made sin and I did that. Yes, we are supposed to make sin, we are supposed to fall, but also we rise through our falls. But this other side, it helps us to just be, because we understand that, hey, this whole universe, it's a virtual thing. It's not even a reality. it's not real. So that kind of thinking helps us to just like go to survive, to go through it, and not to be upset with our sins or like whatever and whatever. So we just see it as a way that we grow through it, right? It's just part of it. It's the duality of the universe.
It's interesting how we can go ahead, Ken.
I can simplify this a little bit if you're in the mood to be simplified. Think about Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Or is that his second law? One of those laws anyway. It's a law of physics. So my first question is, do you buy it? Do you believe that? That's anybody who calls himself a scientist, they all believe it. Physics, they all believe this. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you buy that, then in addition to applying that to the physical realm, let's apply it to the mental realm, to our mind, and see if that law of physics applies to our mind. And if it does, then the kind of examples or illustrations that it does apply in the mind might be, for example, if we want to become a doctor, what's the cause of being a doctor? You know, the cause and effect. Well, the cause is going to medical school. So I didn't go to medical school, and therefore I am not a doctor, even if I wanted to be one. So it's not that complex. When we think about the actions of the past, I went to plumbing school, so I'm a plumber. So the action of the past causes our present condition. And if I decide now I'm going to go to auto mechanic school, then in the future sometime I'll be an auto mechanic. It's as simple as that. So now when you try to spin it a little bit, let's imagine that we've decided we want to rob a bank. So we plan it all out and we successfully execute our plan and we rob the bank and we make our getaway. And now we're being hunted. So at that moment, we have now committed the crime, but we have not done the time. The cause has been put in place, but the effect of spending 10 years in the slammer has not yet materialized. We're still avoiding the cops. So when most people think of karma, they think of that. It's a karmic potential. Because we committed the crime, we're going to get caught and do the time. So that's, religion spins that in, you're a sinner, you've committed all these sins and broken the commandments and all that. Therefore, you're going to burn in hell for all eternity. So it's a little extreme. I think I'd rather be a bank robber and do my time on earth rather than, I don't know what you have to do to burn in hell for all eternity, but it doesn't sound like a very good plan. But anyway, so if we just take the correct, or I'm going to use the word correct because of course I'm right on this one. But if we just take Newton's third and spin it into, it applies to the mind as well as to physics, it's way less controversial and actually quite logical. Now let's look at heaven and hell from that same point of view. We do something, let's say that we're, I don't know, we're a little careless in the kitchen and we spill boiling water on our foot and it hurts like crazy. So we were a little careless, we spilled and we got the consequence of that, and that's suffering. Ouch. So we're all familiar with suffering. Then somebody comes in and our dinner guest comes over and we've got a sore foot, burns like hell, but we're going to tough it out and serve them dinner. And they're now having a wonderful experience, having great pleasure, drinking our wine, eating our fabulous meal, and listening to our witty conversation. So that's pleasure. So the concept of heaven and hell becomes, in our lives, of course, we bounce between suffering and joy every day. I mean, that's our lives. We try to get more and more joy and less suffering, but good luck with that one. So there is a state of mind that only knows suffering. And there's another state of mind that only knows pleasure. So those are the definitions of heaven and hell that are sort of oversimplified versions. And if you just think so simply like that, it kind of makes sense. Then you can just relax and, yeah, okay, I get it. Whether you agree with it or not is another story, because in order to agree, we just need to then take the test and try it out. Take a walk down in Needle Park here in Vancouver if you want to visit hell. Those poor suckers are, I mean, it's raining out there now, and they're out there freezing their butts off. Oh, I think I know how to get heaven. I'll just take a little shot of this cool stuff here, and next thing you know, I'll be in heaven for a little while.
To them, it is. To them,
Yeah,
they're in heaven.
exactly.
That's another side of this. You've got to understand that however you see things, that's your perception of it. Like none of us know
That's true.
the 100% totality of what's going on. And it could be that there is no God, or it could be there is a God, or there could be a simulation. It could be that we're learning lessons. Maybe there is no God, and consciousness is just something that's manifested through evolution. And when we die, that's the end of it. And none of these stories mean anything. I mean, we really don't know the truth. So I think it's good to stay open and enjoy all the stories, but realize that they're all perspectives and they're all perceptions. And you'll glam onto the one that makes the most sense to you, and that will be yours. And just watch how defensive you get when someone threatens it. If you're defensive and you're feeling angry or whatever, that's because you're holding on. That's because you're trapped in a way of thinking, because the present moment is always the way out, and understanding that this is all there is right now. And you don't have to worry about, I don't think you have to worry about the past, and I don't think you have to worry about the future. I do, but I don't think it's really necessary.
Thank you.
Any comments, Dave?
Oh, I was just reflecting on, sustained happiness for me is, I think we agree, is staying in the moment and observing your mind in the moment. And, that perspective, you decide how you're going to feel. To my way of thinking, like I was working today, and it wasn't the most pleasant job, but I just sort of just sunk into the moment of it, and just said, well, this is, kind of observing my mind, and it's up to me how I feel about this, and it's fine, it's great, I'm happy in it, and that I try, I know this, and I try to stay there through everything. But that's part of being human, is you're going to get knocked one way or the other, and making those adjustments. But sort of once you get a taste of it, and can decide to be happy in any moment, I think you can sustain greater amounts of joy and happiness. And I agree with, Brent, especially, you have a really articulate way of talking about the present. And that's yeah, I agree. I think it's in the moment. And I think if you're trying to create that joy, that joyous mind, that happy mind, to me, that's, I'm advancing. I'm remembering my divine self, is one way I think about it. So
when you can formulate it, Dave, would you please explain to me, like, how we're choosing how we feel? Because I wish that was true, and I wish I could say, I'm tired of feeling the way I'm feeling, and I want to feel great. Now I feel great. If you can actually do that, please figure out a way to tell me about it, because I can't see it, and I would really love it to be true, and really would love to know how to do it. But I can't do that. I'm never able, when I'm not feeling well, to feel good immediately just by.
No, I don't think it's sometimes it's immediate. It takes practice and knowing that you can do it the more you practice it. But no, I mean, I was feeling lousy all day a couple of days ago, and I'm like, I knew, I was like, observing my lousy mood, and I'm going, gee, I'm depressed, and I don't want to be depressed. And okay, like, just, you got to, sort of get out of it. And I didn't really ever get down to what it was that I was depressed about. I was just like, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, but okay, let's just got to roll with this for a while. But I want to work on getting out of it. And I think it is just observing your mind and saying, I can, and knowing you can get out of this, right? You can move into a more joyous state, but I don't, sometimes it's instant. Sometimes I walk out the door, and living in Vancouver, and this was really good for the practice of it, right? Is this weather, it's raining, it's gray, it's dark, it's not going to change for a month. And it's just like, oh, man. But is that ever good for you for your practice? You're like, okay, doesn't matter. This ain't going to change. That weather's not going to change. What do I need to do to change this? So I feel like I'm okay. I'm feeling good inside. And that's just like, okay, just like people would complain about the weather. And I'd say, yeah, isn't it great? You know, and they're like, oh, shut up. But that was like one of the things that I was able to kind of use as my practice was the weather. And
my way around it was in 2015 when I moved here, I painted this room yellow.
Right.
Because everybody saying, it gets gray and it's raining all the time. I went, whoop, paint yellow. So,
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Okay. You made a joke out of it.
So,
go ahead, Kelly.
I found last year a little tough. Just lots of stuff going on, and yeah, and I found it really, really hard, just spiritually and emotionally, and I became very spiritually resentful against people who were like, oh yeah, there is, there's gonna be light and blah blah blah. I'm like, oh my god, shut up, because you know, like. It was really not good. And actually what I did, instead of saying shut up to those people, I just kind of avoided them, because I said to a friend, I said, well, I think the kindest thing that I can do, the most spiritual thing I can do right now, is just not be around them. That's, I think, the best idea. And that's what I did, because I wasn't having it. Yeah, and I didn't like my job anymore. I was done with that, and yet I went back. And then when we had stuff close again, I thought, okay, this is it. I'm gonna just not go back, and I haven't. And I feel great. I feel so good, like not anxious, not depressed, just really, really good in the direction that I'm going. Because I feel like now I'm actually helping people on a wider scale, and that's great. But I'm not a social work type, so I'm helping them in my way. And that's great.
I just want to go back to what Shima was saying about the past. I also was wondering more about habits. Like, we have habits of habitual thinking or thoughts, right? And I guess to some degree that can be the hell that we're in, right? Because, even though we know that we shouldn't do certain things, we do it anyway. But there's that side of like, why am I doing this when I know it's not healthy for me, or it's whatever. Any comments there?
It's again goes back to all the way like how we are programmed our mind. So part of it is that the way we program ourselves, and then part of it is that we are programmed as child, like when we're kids, like by our parents, by the society. So we are conditioned. So part of it is that we are just conditioned to certain sort of things, like if something, then something, or just the way that we are programmed. So for example, if right now there's a loud noise in the air, all of our reactions will be different. Even if there is just one cause, there will be 6 reactions. It's because the way that maybe one of us like didn't even like react to anything. I don't know, somebody else might faint, right? It's just the way that we are programmed. And that's how our mind works. So part of it is that our mind is a perception of things, and that's why it's important to change that mentality, to change our perception, because a lot of things happens in the moment and we just react to it momentarily. We don't even think about it. We just react to it. And it's all because of those programs. It's like a computer that saw programs. Okay, something happened, then this should, as a result, this should like be happen as a result. So until we change those programs, we're not going to see a change. So even though we know it, then even if we didn't make a conscious effort to change it, we're not going to see an effect.
Yeah.
I just started biting my nails again, and I haven't bit my nails in years. And all of a sudden, the last couple of months, I've been biting my nails, and I do it every day, and I catch myself doing it, and I'm going, "What are you doing?" And it's just happening, and I'm just, you know, I'm not particularly nervous or upset. It just takes me over, and I watch myself bite my nails, and I look at them and I go, they look awful. They take a long time to grow back. So, you know, and I'm just watching it happen, and it's like I'm frozen in the space of watching that take place, and I don't feel like there's no desire to force a stop. There's just the I'm just going, wow. So there's something just running, you know, in us. I mean, it's kind of part of evolution that we pick up these habits, and sometimes they satisfy certain needs that we have at the time. Like I was biting my nails probably when I was a kid, just because there it was. I remember I was biting my toes one day, and as I bit the toe nail, it kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and I almost was in tears. Watching myself bite my toenail off practically, and I'm thinking, why can't, you know, why you know, this thing, it's like I was on some kind of drug or something that was forcing me to do it. And so, you know, we have these feelings that come into us, and we're not in charge of what arises in our consciousness in the moment. I don't decide what I'm going to be thinking in the next instant or what I'm feeling. So they're just there. And, you know, there's the subconscious aspect of existence. You know, you can walk down the street, a bug can be flying towards your face, and before you can even think a bug's flying towards my face, your eye automatically closes. There's that automatic system that's just inside of us that just causes things to happen. And so, you know, I can't explain it. I can't explain why I'm biting my nails, but I am. I'm hoping I'm going to stop soon. But unless I feel a really strong desire to try and stop something, I can't stop it. So if that feeling isn't there, I have no impetus to do it. I'm just observing what's happening.
That's an example of karma. If you think in terms of karma that I just thought, that I just used, that's the simple definition, you know, the Newton's law definition, cause and effect. So you can, if you use that to help you in this situation of nail biting, then you say, well, what caused the nail biting? Then you might come to a conclusion that Shima just came to, that there's a program in there, some kind of little bio-computer program that makes you do that. And there's lots of these, that's how your subconscious runs. So you can analyze it and think about it if you use all those tools. And then you may be able to solve the problem in some way.
Yeah, if that occurs to me at the time, you're right. Yeah. But
if that doesn't work, you know what's going to happen. The negative behavior, biting the nails, eventually will cause enough suffering that you'll be motivated to fix it.
Probably.
So suffering would be it's actually the good spin on pain. It'll hurt so much, you'll say, I'm going to fix this.
It also can be a consequence of past, like something that you did in the past, and it's like a consequence. You still do it because you used to do it as a kid. But I want to say something else for the way our mind is programmed, and we do have all these other programs. Like one is that we also have it in psychology. It's like a defensive self. So what we call it is the secondary mother. So the secondary mother is like a mother is trying to take care of us, meaning it's like, so if you are in an instant, if you're in a very stressful situation, we try to get us out of it. And that's why we don't work and we get a new job. Like the first day, we just don't want to get out of bed, or we're like, oh, I'm gonna exercise from tomorrow, and I can't even like get out of bed at the same time. That it's just because that second, it gives me stress, that new thing, that new change. And that secondary mother is like, oh, you know what, you can always like, sleep a little bit more. And this happens so subconsciously that I'm not even aware of it, that I'm just listening like, oh yeah, maybe I'm like really tired, I need to sleep 1 more hour. And it's just there to get us out of a stressful situation. So that's another part of the way our mind is programmed. And there's so many other programs to it. So like in Scientology, which is also part of Erfane, that's what we learn, is like what are these other programs of our mental body and of our psych body. So like once we get to know it, then a lot of our like things, we find a lot of answers to the questions that we have. So so yeah, a big part of it is just that all these programs, different programs, and subconscious, conscious mind, and there are other things too.
That kind of goes back to what Ken's essay was about too, is that people get a bit too arrogant about what they think about themselves and others, right? Without realizing that it could be a program that's in them bringing out this arrogance. So I don't know. Just I throw that.
And I think arrogance thing, it's more of a choice. It's you can choose because it's your ego, right? Your ego is like, I'm the better. I like, yes, your ego is selfish. I'm better. I know better. And that's the first lesson that Satan taught us, right? Like the Adam and Eve, like all the other angels, they bowed to us other than Satan. Satan says, I'm better. Why should I bow? That's the first lesson. And then everything that happened to him, it's because he didn't bow, because he said, I'm better. So I am better. It's going to cause us trouble during this experience of universe. And I actually, that is the biggest question. That's the question that we're going to go out when we're going to go after heaven. There's one question, is that, are we together or are you God by yourself? Because that at that time we have the just, now we are one with that spirit of God. So we have that godlike power. So it's like, are we together or you're on your own? And like, well, I'm better. If I say I'm better, then I'm going to experience this lifetime again. But that's another thing. But yes, I'm better. That's the first teaching of Satan right there.
The pride.
Yeah.
But Satan isn't necessarily the bad guy. I mean, he's
no, Satan was part of the plan. Part of
yeah,
the,
exactly,
yeah, for sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
So he's gonna. So you can't just think that Satan. I mean, it's not like you can't. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's just no good or bad in any of this stuff. You know, it's like Satan's doing its thing, God's doing his thing, you know, we're doing our thing. And it's when you start labeling it and say this is bad or this is good, that's when you get into trouble. If you just like see it and go, okay, that's what's happening. This is affecting me in some way. I'll figure it out when I do. And not get into this is right and this is wrong, which I think is the big mistake.
Yeah, that again, go back to the way that we see life, is that coin. One part of it is that duality exists, Satan exists. The other side of it is that nothing exists. Satan is also part of the plan. That's why I love Satan too. But in the other side of it, it still exists. Still, I have to deal with it. I still have to be aware of it, right? So we see both sides of the coin, because without seeing both sides of the coin, we basically can, if we only see just the materialistic part, then that's gonna cause a lot of problem. And only if we see one part that is just love, then we're just gonna be crazy people, because then we're just gonna say, oh, I love all the murderers and rapists and robbers, like, you know, so we're just gonna be crazy. But we have to see both sides, right? Because we are dealing with both sides right now. So one part of it is that there's no time, there's no space, there's no conflict. But the other side of us is right here, right now, which I have to deal with time and space and conflicts and Satan and negative and positive and all that. So I think that's the both sides of the coin. It's the problem, because you see the other part. You always see like oneness. So that's one side of it. And then the other side of it, it's good to see both sides. That's what I'm saying, I guess.
But we've got to love the murderers, because if we don't, they won't get out of that. They're calling out for love. They're calling out for oneness when they operate that way. And in order to take care of them, we have to love them, or they'll never go away. And we don't take care of them, and we don't love them, and so they don't go away. I think we talked about this before about prison. Wouldn't it be great if it was a love prison and they were given more love than they could handle? I think we talked about that here.
Yeah.
But that we have to love them, and
Mhm.
we have to take care of them, and they need that. And when they get that, they'll stop being murderers, hopefully.
I don't know if it happens to you or to your loved one, would you say the same thing or not? But again, two parts of the
Probably
coin.
not, because
Exactly.
I'm susceptible to my feelings, but that's not the right way to go about doing
That's why
this.
I'm saying there is two sides to it. One side is all love, it's all oneness, and the other side is we have to deal with these people or things, and we have to be aware of it, right?
As
So
long as
one
we're
side
out
of
of oneness only. Once you get into oneness, then you don't have to deal with that. It just becomes part of the oneness.
That's why, because you're not dealing with it right now. But if you're in Ukraine and your family is getting killed by Putin, or if you're in Taliban,
course,
and
of
yeah,
course.
exactly, then you have to deal with that. But obviously,
Of
we are in
course.
this part of the world that we don't have to. I mean, you're just lucky. Like, okay, I'm secure enough. I can just talk about this stuff. But yeah, go there. And if you still say that, if your life is in danger, if your loved ones are in danger, if you still can say that, that would be great, which you should still be say that, because one part of it is that this doesn't exist. So that's what I'm trying to say. We see the both sides. We still have to deal with that though.
You got to deal with your own emotional states that come out of that. Yes.
And that's the thing, like in Halqa mysticism, we actually gonna go and study us, study myself, study the self, and start to build this up. So we're not gonna go, we don't even like, I don't think that there's a lesson that we talk about the world or the state of the world. Maybe there's talk here and there, but what we talk is about just ourselves, because ourself is the universe by itself. So I can only fix the world by fixing myself. So it's all about myself. And you're right, like my emotions, like I gotta know what my emotions are. But again, through my understanding myself, then I can understand others, then I can understand the universe. But still, I have to deal with everything. So all I'm saying is that we cannot be ignorant. So that's what I'm saying.
That what?
We cannot be ignorant of what's happening in the world. We're just saying, hey, this is oneness. Putin is oneness. Like, no, Putin is wrong, and we need to rise up to Putin.
No, he isn't. He's doing what he's doing. He's not right. He's not wrong. He's not good. He's not bad. That's the way out of this.
Okay, so what? Okay, let's say that you, Brent, is in charge. Your 1% is in charge, and everyone's gonna, whatever you're gonna say, is gonna do that to Putin. What do you say to Putin right now? Okay, so you're in charge. Putin is killing people. Is like is in war with Ukraine. So what do you say? So you say that we should put him into trial. We'll put him in trial. You say that set him free, let him do whatever he does. We do that. What would you say?
If I'm God?
No, not your God. You're the person.
Right now, if I could talk to Putin, what would I say?
Or just
I'd
say, hey, what's your idea?
I'd say, I understand why you're doing what you're doing. You're in a position where NATO has encroached on you. It's that we want to put missiles on your border. You're reacting in a defensive mode, just like we did when the Russians put missiles down in Cuba. I understand your position. And then I would talk to the American people and I say, can you understand his position? Because you're putting him in a position where he's fighting back. That's what I would say. Because I think that's what's happening.
If you're in charge, you are the guy who is in charge. That's what you're saying. In charge.
You've got to get through to people wherever they're at. You've got to explain to them
I understand.
what's going on.
My question is, if you're in charge, sorry if I say it again, but if you're in charge, what would you say? Because if I'm in charge, then I would just say different things. I would say, I understand part of it is God, part of it is divine, but what you're doing is not right. You have to go into, you have to be
what
put
we're
on
doing
trial.
isn't right. We drove him into a corner. You don't see, you've got to see the overall picture of what's going on here. You're only seeing part of it. You're blaming Putin for the problem. He's not the problem. The problem is NATO and Putin trying to get along with each other. That's the problem. Both of us, we're all involved in this.
We are all involved in this.
Absolutely.
We are dealing with Putin right now.
We're the ones who vote for who's president. We're that involved, and none of us see the whole picture. But I see a lot more than the average person does because I went and looked. So you've got to see both sides. See, if you don't see both sides, you can say to me, "Oh, Brent, you decide what to do," because you're thinking that Putin's wrong and there's a way to deal with him. But see, that's the problem, because you can't look at Putin any differently than you look at anyone else. He's no different than anyone else. There isn't any difference between Jesus Christ and Satan from this perspective. And that's God's perspective, because he he's built this world with them both in it and allows it to be. So we're the ones that don't see clearly, and we're the ones that need to see clearly, and everything's one. And until we get to the point where what is fine, we've got a problem, and that's in us, in our emotional state that responds in that way. So you've got to bring your consciousness up a level to see this space from oneness. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in the fight all the way through.
But I guess I said it, two sides of the coin. That's my view, but you can have your view.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Ken, do you have any comments?
Yeah, you guys both forgot about the other participant, the Ukrainians. The Russians have accused Zelensky of committing war crimes against his own people. And for that reason, they invaded. Press doesn't cover those kind of stories. There was a civil war going on in the Ukraine. There's two states that want to break away and join Russia. And Zelensky are trying to stop them. So there was all kinds of war going on before the Russians entered the picture. It was Ukrainians against Ukrainians. So it really shouldn't pay too much attention to what the media are saying, because they're just going to make Putin the villain. Some people think he's the hero.
That's right. And I saw a site the other day that had like about 10 reasons why we were fighting. And it was all about all these different things going on at the same time. Yeah. And they're all part of the issue. The question is, why is this troubling you right now? Why am I reacting to this situation? What is it in me that isn't right? What is it in me that has expectations? Well, how's my ego involved in this? Why am I picking sides? That's the real question to ask.
The responsibility of human being is to rise up for what justice is. That is our responsibility.
Yeah, but your position on justice is different than mine is, right? So,
exactly.
So that's the issue.
Everyone thinks that they are right? So it's good to have like that view of what's wrong and what's right. And I don't want to get into the Putin thing here, because that's just we're gonna go sideways. Yeah. But to stay on point is defending the right, defending the fair, what's fair, defending justice. It's our responsibility as human being, and it's inside us. And I think everyone it's just part of our nature.
And it would be nice if we knew all the angles, all the truth, if there was no deception on anybody. If they could come to the table and just be honest about what's really going on and what's really been happening, then you could see it. And then so often that's not what's happening. That's hardly anybody knows what's really going on. And the amount that you have to dig to find out a little bit about what's going on it's incredible. So I mean, and how often does this have to happen, where somebody is vilified in the media as the evildoer, and we have to rise up, and but nobody really knows the whole story, and there's just too many agendas, and whoever controls the media is controlling an agenda. And this just keeps happening time and time again, that somebody is getting demonized and is presented as the bad man, and that we have to we get caught up in this fight. And it's just like, well, that's would be nice if it was really brought to awareness about what's really going on, who's done what and where and when, and we probably never will. So it's
I think Putin was just an example of some bad guy. Just say whatever you want to say. Al-Qaeda, who just beheads people just for no reason. It was just an example of a bad person. It wasn't just, hey, this war or that war, or just like an example of a bad person. If you can agree on one bad person that he did bad thing for real, then we can talk about that. But I don't really want to get into who's right, who's wrong. But if we know one's wrong, and then okay, so now what we do with that person. So that was my I guess my purpose. But go ahead, Diane. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, if you believe in God, and this is all happening under the auspices of God's plan, everything, bad, good, and whatever else. So,
and do you know why? Because we have a choice. because God gives us that choice of good
It's
and
not
bad.
okay. Let's don't get into free will again, please. Not here right now.
That is why not? That is my
Because
belief. That is
if we
okay. So
had the
your
choice,
belief,
because if we had free will and real choices, we would right now make a decision to not let any of this bother us. Bam, we'd be out of it. Who
it
cares who's
doesn't
bad? Who
bother me,
cares
but
who's
still,
good?
it doesn't bother me
But you're
in
bringing it
terms
up,
of course I bring it up.
so it's
Of course,
bothering you.
as a human being, of course, my responsibility is to act for justice. So
Then
again,
do
two
it.
sides of
Yeah.
I
Then
am
do it.
doing it. I am doing it.
But,
I'm doing it. But so what do you mean by do it just right now? Hey, people, like, just get
but
go
you
crazy.
know, there are people, very well-meaning people, who think that they're fighting for justice, but they're actually being manipulated, right? So,
Trumpets.
and that is a problem, and especially in regards to social media, mainstream media, you know, like people, when you dig and really find out who's behind some of these big protests and all this, you realize there's a lot of manipulation behind the scenes. And another thing I want to say, because I was in Egypt at the time that the so-called Arab Spring was going on, the revolution that never really changed anything, there was a lot of manipulation by the mainstream media there. And so even people living there were manipulated into staying in their homes. They're afraid to go out and all this because they were watching mainstream media saying, oh, you know, there's these people out of prison and they're running the streets, they're rampant, they're doing this and doing that. You know, there are people terrified to step outside their door because they're reading stuff in the newspaper, they're watching, you know, CNN, BBC, you know, Fox News, whatever they were watching at the time, Al Jazeera, right? And they were given an unrealistic view of what was going on at the time.
Which
So when
is
you,
itself also a perspective on that each one of us has, and so we'll judge whatever we see as not being correct and not being the way it should be. Here and like that's why this never ends. It's because there's always the good and there's always the bad in this perceptual viewpoint. You will find the good and head in that direction. You will find the bad and head away from that direction, and then you will argue the point with anybody that will talk to you. And so all I'm saying is there's a higher state of consciousness that's above this. Now, I'm not for letting murderers run around murdering people. You take them off the streets, but you don't put them in prison. You love them. That's the only way they're going to change. So we can improve that. But in the meantime, you've got to understand that this is happening. If this is God's plan, this is happening for a purpose, and the purpose has to do with each one of us and our reactions to our emotional states. If you think that it's a bad situation, make it better. Do whatever you can think of to make it better. If you don't care, don't care. If you think it's a good situation and you want to get involved, make it better. I mean, each one of us has a personal, you say you believe in free will, okay, then exercise your free will to head in the direction that you think it's a good thing. And if all that is talking about it, that's probably going to keep you talking about it and not getting anywhere. So maybe if you feel the way you do, there's something that you can do.
Me right now.
There's something that you can do that you're not doing. And that way you wouldn't be talking about it so much.
I don't understand. Why are you making it so personal, first of all?
I'm pointing you out because we have different perspectives.
I know, I understand, and it's all right. I'm talking about okay, first of all, you don't know if I'm doing anything or not. So it's just saying, hey, you're just talking when you don't know me.
Okay, tell us what you're doing about it. Tell me what you're doing about it.
Okay, and again, you're just accusing me. This is not a court, and I don't have to really respond.
I'm asking you. You say that you're not just talking about it. I'm asking you what you do.
But Brent, Sheena has been doing things, especially in regards to women's rights, right? Like I saw that video you sent out for International Women's Day, that sort of thing. And the women who are working hard to improve things for women.
I'm a content creator. Yes, Dan, I think that media, just like you mentioned, they are not doing a great job in representing us or giving us right information. Not media, not Hollywood, not filmmakers, none of them. They're just lies and lies. So I'm a content creator. I studied animation for 2 years, and then at 2 years after that, filmmaking and music making. So that I'm trying to put good stuff out there, like good content media. So that is my goal, and that is where I started a year ago, and that is where I'm at. So of course, this is not gonna happen one night. I'm not gonna be like 100% like have all of followers and subscribers, but that's the direction I'm going, and I'm hoping that I can make a difference in another person's life, in one more person's life. That would be great. So that's what I'm doing right now. And
also participating in things like this is very helpful, right? Because you're giving people a perspective on, your life and your life in Iran, your life here as well, right? It's giving
exactly.
young women some insight to that as well.
Exactly, because there are lots of people that are representing us that are just wrong, and they're giving pictures out there, which that's not the right picture. That also, just so me just being here, hey, just as a girl, as an Iranian, whatever, you can just, get to know me. And also for me, just to, if I want to, if these are my beliefs, then these are other people's beliefs, then okay, so how can we get to a talk? So where we can find the common ground, where we can find, when we agree, where we don't agree. So yeah, of course, like just this is a lesson for me by itself. And every week that I come here, I either learn something from it, or if something, a question arises, then I would think about it actually for the rest of the week. Then I'm like, oh, I could have said that, or I could have said this. So those kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah.
That's great. I applaud you for that. That's wonderful. This is what we all should be doing. I got a book I'm going to write. I've got animations I'm putting together. I got stuff I'm doing to get the message out the way I see it, the way I think will help people a lot. That's my whole goal, is to make a difference.
And I'm with you. And I'm with you on that oneness. It's just that I think the one part that we don't really see eye to eye is that I see the both side of the coin are more important, and you see, hey, you can just see one part of it. And so that's a whole story. That again, yeah, exactly. That's my perspective. So yeah, sorry. So anyway, gonna say.
Well, this actually goes back to our topic for next week. Do we do sacred art and other types of art form, right? Now, Dave and I kind of had this discussion because he was concerned if it got too political. But I mean, that is a side to, some people's life, right? They are political, they create certain things about it. It doesn't have to lead to a debate, but if you want to show some of the work that you're doing, Brent, if you want to discuss some of the things about your book, as well as, looking at some, like I have some paintings I'd probably show and some of my favorite artists, whoever. But I wonder if we open it up a little more. So I'm just throwing that out to you. Do you think it should be just sacred art, or should it be broader?
It could be broader. I don't have any problem with making anything political, because I don't understand people who say let's not talk politics, because politics is part of us. It's the way a lot of things that happens today because of politics. So I'll be an unaware person, an ignorant person, if I say, hey, I want to just separate myself from politics. I don't have any problem with talking about it or just making it broader.
Yeah. Can I tell you why some people do have issues with it? Because you see the same program over and over again. Everybody's divided. It's this side or that side. You really see it on social media, like Facebook and Twitter. I can tell you right now, the politics of someone living in Alberta, Canada, compared to someone living in Vancouver or whatever, right? I mean, you just know from region the politics of people. So that's one reason why Dave and I said, well, do we go that way or not? But I'd like everyone's feedback on this.
Well, just play it by ear. I mean, we can be an open group and do all kinds of different things. And then when it gets to that point in your perspective, then you can say something about it, And then that way we're here in the moment and we're not worried about stuff, because in the moment you'll know that it's gone too far, and then you'll step in and maybe we'll step back and go, yeah, we're getting too far in, you know, so that's your part of your role, I guess, is starting the group.
Yeah, and I do think people have to speak their truth, right? And so, yeah, that's part of expanding your consciousness, right? And that truth may be with you for a while, and all of a sudden more information comes to you, and your truth shifts, right? Because of that.
And sacred art's a good thing, and we'll probably end up going off on some tangents because it reflects something back to us that we
Good
want to
point.
talk about. I mean, this is a place where we can air a lot of things that we can't normally air, maybe because we don't have enough friends to talk about this stuff. I mean, I air this kind of stuff a lot because I'm on all these groups. Most people aren't in as many groups as I am, but yeah, and so yeah, so I want to be open in this group for anything really to happen, and not to limit it. But we're going to have to pick some kind of a topic to start with, you know. Like if it's art, you know, we may not be on art the whole time. We'll go off, but some place to start would be kind of nice.
Okay. So Dave, Penny, Kelly, any
Well,
feedback?
I think sacred art is a good place to start, you know, but that's probably a huge subject unto itself. But I mean, art can take you anywhere. So
Kenny?
I'd like to start with sacred art and end with sacred art. I was a member of a European mystic school called the European, anyway, it was Art and Culture. I forget the full name of the thing now. Okay. But this guy was a brilliant teacher of sacred art. So he took us on tours of the capital of the Renaissance in Florence. And he explained what these different pictures meant. And it was fabulous. So I want to bring thousands of those next week. But unfortunately, I don't think I have any. So I wish I could. I've often thought that I should go back to Florence and tour those museums again.
Do that in the next week. Don't bring more than 1,000.
But you know what, Kenny?
Okay.
Can you find certain images in Google Images and talk?
Yeah, so for example, the birth of Venus is one where I sat in front of that picture for half an hour one day and just meditated on it. Yeah. And whoa, did I ever learn a lot. So I can give a lecture on that, but I don't know where I used to have a big poster of it, this beautiful thing Botticelli did anyway, and when I moved here, I gave it away. Okay. So
if it exists,
so if there's anything like we can do a share screen, or if you want to send anything to me, like I can just show it. So let me know.
Yeah,
that's what I'll do. Okay, because there's that one. That'll be my contribution. Then I'll show you what I see in that one painting.
Okay, and the painting is.
It's the Birth of Venus, by Botticelli. It's not there's other birth. That was one of the things they did in those days, but it's Botticelli. It's the most famous one where this naked woman is standing in a seashell, and the one you see you see it everywhere.
So we'll join you for half an hour with that one.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
And Kelly, any comments?
I've been quiet tonight. I know.
You've been probably talking a lot. Sorry, Kelly.
So you can bring maybe like your piano composition or whatever comes to mind, or have you written any poems or anything, Kelly? Anything?
I'm not a poet, and I know it. What?
You could play music. Could you play some music?
Oh yeah, I play. Yeah.
Oh great. Okay.
Yeah. So that was my question: was what would sacred art be for Kelly? You know, we all have some visual impressions of what that might be, but I guess
Shima, did you want to? Because I want to give you feedback on your video, but why not just save it for next week and show it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So yeah, and anything else, like if you have any sacred pieces, anything that you'd like to share. Okay.
I
realized that excuse me, Kelly, I realized when we were doing the music one, remember I said one piece, and so people were slipping. Well, Brent, yours were short pieces, but the rest of us were putting in longer pieces. So we need to make it up.
What were you going to say, Kelly?
I was also thinking earlier when somebody said about arrogance or something, and sometimes I can come across as arrogant. I don't mean to. It's just sometimes like I must have been a lawyer in my past life because I can always find, I'm always like when somebody wants to discuss a subject or whatever, I always somehow like find a way to turn it into kind of a cross-examination. I don't mean to. It's just it's just with certain subjects I do. Actually, like I don't know. It's not that I'm trying to say that I'm better or anything. It's just that I think that it's a way of me thinking out loud, but it's also trying to see if that person maybe will kind of broaden their horizons a little bit too, like broaden their thoughts. But it does come across as arrogant. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So you kind of made me think, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I should work on just being more quiet, not, you know, just expressing my thoughts.
Okay, Kelly. And Kelly, so next week, though, I do want to go back to that. So should I use one of the piano pieces that you sent me? I think you sent me 2 a while ago, or do you have something else you'd like to say?
I can draft something up.
Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone, for a lively discussion. It started with a one-room schoolhouse and in another direction. But anyways, thank you.
One of these days, Shima and I will fall in love with each other, I'm sure.
I actually really like Brent. No, I do.
I think some
If I didn't, I
similarities
wouldn't
here, so.
come back into this group. But no, guys, you're all good.
All right, guys.
And you know what? I think you need to feel comfortable to express yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, and we need those challenges.
No, thank
Right.
you for giving
Agree.
me those challenges, Brent. Actually.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Good night. Good night, Kelly.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good
Bye-bye.
night. Bye bye.